Hello everyone, and welcome to my Beyond the Gates official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. June's sudden and unexplained departure sends shockwaves through Beyond the Gates, leaving viewers unsettled not because she is gone, but because of how deliberately unfinished her exit feels, as though she vanished mid-sentence in a story that was never meant to end so quietly. And from the very first moments following her disappearance, the atmosphere across the Gates estate grows heavy with unanswered questions, whispered theories, and uneasy glances exchanged by characters who all seem to know more than they are saying, because June did not leave like someone chasing a new beginning. She left like someone running from a reckoning, and the truth, when finally revealed, exposes a hidden storyline that has been unfolding beneath the surface for months, beginning with June's increasingly erratic behavior in the weeks leading up to her departure. Moments that were easy to dismiss at the time as stress or fatigue, but now read as warning signs, including her sudden habit of checking exits, lowering her voice when discussing certain names, and freezing whenever an unfamiliar car appeared near the house, all of which point to a woman living under quiet but constant pressure. And as the narrative peels back the layers, it becomes clear that June uncovered something she was never meant to see, something connected to a long-buried incident involving forged documents, a falsified medical report, and a chain of lies that tied directly into the power structure protecting several major players within the Gates family. And June, unlike others who sensed corruption and chose silence, made the fatal mistake of asking questions, tracing irregularities in records that revealed a deliberate cover-up surrounding a past accident that was officially ruled natural but privately disputed by those who benefited most from its conclusion. And once June realized that the truth implicated not just one individual but an entire network of mutual protection, she became a liability. Overnight, though no one confronted her directly, choosing instead to isolate her subtly, cutting off access, shifting schedules, and letting fear do the work violence would only complicate. And the most chilling revelation emerges when flashbacks show June receiving anonymous warnings. Notes slipped into her bag, voicemails that cut off mid-breath, and a single message that read, "You're not as invisible as you think." A line that finally pushed her to make the impossible decision to leave. Without explanation, because staying would not have meant fighting back. It would have meant becoming collateral damage. And as Bill and Nicole begin pulling on the loose thread June left behind, they uncover evidence that June had prepared an emergency exit plan weeks in advance, including cash withdrawals, duplicate IDs, and a burner phone hidden behind a loose floorboard, proving her departure was not impulsive but calculated, a last act of self-preservation from someone who knew exactly how dangerous the truth had become. And the emotional weight intensifies when it is revealed that June tried to warn someone, only to be shut down by fear and loyalty before she could finish speaking, a moment that now haunts those left behind as they realize that her disappearance was not abandonment but sacrifice. And the story takes an even darker turn when a private investigator confirms that June didn't just leave town. She erased herself, changing her name, severing all digital traces, and stepping into a life where survival requires anonymity, suggesting that whatever she uncovered still holds the power to destroy lives if exposed. And as Haley's shadow looms faintly over the revelations, subtle connections emerge linking June's discovery to the same manipulative machinery that has already claimed other victims, implying that June's exit may have been the only move Haley didn't anticipate. And in the final haunting moments of the storyline, a package arrives addressed to Bill, postmarked from nowhere recognizable, containing a single flash drive and a handwritten note from June that reads, "If you're watching this, it means I was right, and it's no longer safe for me to come back," cementing her departure not as cowardice or betrayal, but as the quiet beginning of a truth that refuses to stay buried, promising that June may be gone for now, but her absence will unravel secrets far more explosive than her presence ever could, proving once again that in Beyond the Gates, the most dangerous exits are the ones that leave the door just slightly open. The mystery surrounding June's disappearance deepens even further as Beyond the Gates pulls the camera back to reveal the far-reaching consequences of her exit, transforming what first appeared to be a quiet vanishing into a seismic event that threatens to collapse multiple storylines at once, because the flash drive June sent does not immediately reveal its contents, instead presenting layers of encryption and fragmented files that suggest she feared interception even after leaving. And as Bill and Nicole work in secret to piece it together, they begin to understand that June wasn't just uncovering one scandal. She was mapping an entire ecosystem of deception that has quietly controlled outcomes, silenced dissent, and rewritten history within the Gates family for years, and the fragments that do surface point to altered timelines, witness statements that were revised under pressure, and financial transfers that coincide with moments of sudden silence from people who once threatened to speak out, confirming that June stumbled onto something systematic rather than isolated. And the reason her departure feels so abrupt is because it had to be, because the moment she crossed a certain line, she became expendable, and the show drives this home through unsettling flashbacks that recontextualize her final days, revealing tense conversations cut short, eyes following her through hallways, and a final exchange where June hesitates at the door as if she knows she may never return. And as these revelations ripple outward, suspicion begins to poison relationships across the board, with characters revisiting past events and questioning who benefited from June's silence, who discouraged her curiosity, and who might have subtly pushed her toward the exit under the guise of concern. And the narrative sharpens when it's revealed that June's findings intersect with a timeline Haley was deeply invested in protecting, not because June uncovered Haley's direct actions, but because she was dangerously close to exposing the mechanisms Haley exploits so effectively: fear, leverage, and narrative control, suggesting that June's disappearance may have prevented a domino effect that would have exposed more than just one villain. And the emotional core of the storyline intensifies as those who dismissed June's anxiety are forced to reckon with their complicity, realizing that their need for stability helps silence someone who is trying to tell the truth. And in a haunting turn, June's burner phone resurfaces briefly, pinging a location for only seconds before going dark again, long enough to confirm she is alive but still being hunted by the consequences of what she knows. And the episode closes on a chilling implication that June's departure was not the end of her story, but the beginning of a shadow narrative unfolding off-screen, one where survival depends on secrecy and timing, and where the truth, once fully assembled, may be so explosive that June's only hope is to release it from a distance, reinforcing the idea that in Beyond the Gates, leaving isn't always about escape. It's sometimes the only way to stay alive long enough for justice to catch up. The storyline grows even more ominous as Beyond the Gates reframes June's disappearance not just as an act of survival, but as a strategic sacrifice that quietly reshapes the power dynamics behind the scenes. Because the more Bill and Nicole decode fragments of June's data, the clearer it becomes that she deliberately removed herself from the board to prevent becoming the final piece needed to complete someone else's cover-up. And this realization casts her absence in a tragic new light, revealing that June understood something devastating long before anyone else did, that the system protecting the truth was also designed to destroy the person who uncovered it. And flashbacks begin to surface, showing June wrestling with that knowledge alone, scribbling notes she later burned, rehearsing conversations she never had the courage to finish, and staring at family photographs as if weighing whether staying would cost her more than leaving ever could. While in the present timeline, paranoia spreads as several characters realize June's exit has destabilized carefully maintained lies, forcing old alliances to fracture as people scramble to protect themselves. And the tension spikes when it's revealed that one of the altered records June flagged involves a medical decision that changed the course of multiple lives, a revelation that reopens emotional wounds and suggests that at least one tragedy viewers accepted as fate was, in fact, engineered. And this discovery sends shockwaves through the Gates household as guilt, denial, and the narrative refuses to slow, instead tightening its grip as Beyond the Gates pushes the fallout into even darker territory, because Haley's disappearance does not bring relief but dread, a suffocating sense that a predator has simply gone quiet. And Bill feels it immediately in the way the house creaks at night, in every unknown number that flashes across his phone, in the creeping realization that survival has only made him more valuable as a target, while Lynette, racked with guilt and adrenaline, becomes both his greatest ally and his most dangerous liability, haunted by the knowledge that she knows Haley better than anyone else and therefore may be the only person capable of predicting her next move. And as the days pass, the cracks within the inner circle widen, with Nicole questioning Bill's judgment, Randy growing suspicious of Lynette's motives, and whispers spreading that Bill himself may have provoked Haley into extremity, creating a corrosive atmosphere where truth competes with fear. And it is in this pressure cooker that Haley strikes again, not with violence, but with precision, leaking doctored evidence to the press that paints Bill as unstable and dangerous, reframing the narrative so that her alleged murder plot appears to be nothing more than a paranoid fabrication. And suddenly Bill finds himself under scrutiny from all sides, his credibility eroding just as he needs it most, while Lynette is publicly branded a liar with a vendetta, isolating her further and pushing her toward a breaking point. And in a devastating twist, it is revealed that Haley anticipated Lynette's betrayal from the very beginning, intentionally feeding her partial truths and staged conversations so that when exposed, the story would implode under its own contradictions, revealing Haley's genius for psychological warfare and making Bill realize that the enemy he's facing doesn't just plan crimes. She scripts realities, and as Bill struggles to regain control, he makes the risky decision to confront his past mistakes, confessing secrets he buried long ago that Haley has been threatening to weaponize, a move that shocks those closest to him but ultimately destabilizes Haley's leverage, forcing her to adapt on the fly. And meanwhile, Lynette begins receiving cryptic messages, phrases only Haley would use, references to shared memories, confirming that Haley is watching her, testing her resolve, daring her to run. And when Lynette finally breaks down and admits that part of her still fears Haley because part of her still understands her, the show dives into its most chilling theme yet, the seductive pull of power, the way survival can blur into complicity. And as the storyline barrels toward another explosive turning point, Bill sets a trap designed not to catch Haley physically, but to force her hand emotionally, leaking false information about a confession that would supposedly destroy him, knowing Haley's obsession with control will not allow her to stay hidden. And in the final moments, as Haley watches from the shadows, her face illuminated by a cold smile as she whispers that Bill still belongs to her story, the audience is left with the terrifying certainty that the most dangerous chapter is still ahead, because in Beyond the Gates, the greatest threat is never the one you see coming, it's the one that believes it has already won. The aftermath of that cryptic broadcast sends Beyond the Gates into full-scale fallout mode, as June's carefully engineered absence begins doing exactly what she intended, forcing everyone to reveal who they really are when the illusion of control finally fractures, because the coordinates flashed on screen lead nowhere obvious at first, only a seemingly abandoned storage facility slated for demolition. Yet Bill senses immediately that June wouldn't choose a place without meaning, and as he digs deeper, he uncovers that the property once housed archived records thought to have been destroyed years ago, records tied to sealed settlements, coerced confessions, and medical decisions quietly altered in the name of protecting reputations, and the chilling implication becomes clear. June didn't just uncover evidence, she rescued it before it could be erased forever. And her departure was timed to coincide with the moment those in power believed they were finally safe, while paranoia reaches a fever pitch among the Gates' inner circle, with alliances collapsing under suspicion as people begin accusing one another of leaking information, exposing how fragile their unity always was. And in a devastating emotional beat, a longtime ally breaks down and admits that June begged them to come with her, offering a chance to escape before the truth detonated, only to be refused out of fear. A confession that reframes June not as someone who abandoned others, but as someone who tried to save them and was left no choice but to save herself. And as the pressure mounts, Haley's influence resurfaces in subtle but unmistakable ways, not as the mastermind of June's disappearance, but as someone who understood the value of the system June was about to expose and quietly worked to preserve it, reinforcing the show's darkest theme, that evil doesn't always create corruption. It simply learns how to use what already exists, and as Bill edges closer to releasing the full truth, he receives One final message from June, colder and more distant than any before, warning him that exposure will not bring justice without sacrifice, because some truths don't just destroy villains, they obliterate entire legacies, and the storyline reaches a haunting pause as Bill stands alone, weighing whether honoring June means finishing what she started or becoming the next casualty of it, while the camera lingers on June's empty room, untouched and silent, a reminder that her physical absence has become the most powerful force in the story, because in Beyond the Gates, June didn't leave to disappear. She left to make sure the truth would arrive without her, unstoppable, unforgiving, and finally ready to tear through the lies she barely escaped with her life. Fear collide, because acknowledging June's truth would mean admitting years of complicity, and as pressure mounts, an unexpected figure quietly begins undoing the damage June started, leaking corrected documents anonymously, hinting that June may not be as alone as everyone feared, and the narrative tightens when Bill receives a second message from June, shorter and colder than the first, warning him not to trust anyone who suddenly becomes eager to honor her memory, implying that her disappearance has already been weaponized by those seeking control, and as the episode edges toward another devastating turn, it becomes clear that June's exit forced a choice onto everyone she left behind, either confront the truth she uncovered or continue living comfortably inside the lie that almost destroyed her. And the haunting brilliance of the arc lies in the realization that June's greatest act of defiance was not exposing the truth outright, but denying her enemies the satisfaction of silencing her completely, ensuring that her absence speaks louder than her presence ever did, and as the final shot lingers on an unopened file labeled with June's handwriting, when the timing is right, the audience is left with the chilling certainty that her story is far from over, and that when June finally steps back into the light, it won't be as someone running anymore, but as the catalyst for a reckoning that Beyond the Gates has been quietly building toward all along. The suspense tightens once again as Beyond the Gates pushes June's storyline into its most haunting phase yet, transforming her disappearance into a slow-burning fuse that threatens to ignite everything the Gates family has fought to keep hidden, because as more corrected documents surface anonymously, it becomes impossible to deny that June's fingerprints are all over the unraveling truth, suggesting that her exit was never meant to be permanent silence, but delayed detonation, and this realization breeds panic among those with the most to lose, as emergency meetings are held behind closed doors, old favors are called in, and long-buried alliances are resurrected in desperate attempts to contain the damage, while Bill grows increasingly convinced that June planned every step with chilling precision, leaving breadcrumbs that only someone willing to risk everything would follow. And the emotional toll becomes devastating when Nicole finally admits that June tried to warn her directly, but was brushed off as paranoid, a confession that fractures their relationship and forces Nicole to confront the cost of choosing comfort over courage, and as guilt ripples outward, the narrative delivers another gut punch by revealing that June's discovery connects directly to a decision made years ago that altered a child's future, reframing an entire generation's pain as the product of deliberate manipulation rather than chance. And this revelation turns sympathy into rage, as characters who once dismissed June now realize she was standing between them and a truth powerful enough to rewrite their lives, and the tension escalates when surveillance footage surfaces showing June being followed in the days before her departure, confirming that her fear was justified and that her disappearance was not just proactive but narrowly timed, suggesting she escaped just before the walls closed in, and in a chilling twist, the person tailing her is revealed to be someone the family trusted, implicitly proving that the threat June faced came from within, not outside, and as Bill pieces this together, he understands that June didn't just leave to protect herself, she left to expose who would turn on her if given the chance, a final test of loyalty she knew most would fail, and the episode crescendos with a cryptic broadcast leak that briefly interrupts regular programming, displaying a scrambled image, coordinates, and a familiar phrase written in June's handwriting. "You already know the truth," before cutting to black, sending shockwaves through the Gates household and beyond, and in the final moments, as characters stare at their screens in stunned silence, the weight of June's absence transforms into something far more dangerous than her presence ever was, because she has become an idea, a warning, and a reckoning that cannot be silenced, cementing her departure as one of Beyond the Gate's most powerful turning points, where leaving was not an ending at all, but the moment the truth finally learned how to survive.